Oh, yeah. And I always say one of the key attributes of a good entrepreneur is being really fucking stupid, because you have to be ignorant of what you're about to go do, because otherwise you would never do it. I mean, we made history, but it was stupid to get there.
Well, that was Jordan Weisman talking about, hey, you got to be a little bit
stupid. Just say it.
I mean, I wouldn't say it that way, but like I know exactly what he's talking about.
Though.
Like if you know what you have in store, if you know the pain that's about, it's why it kind of reminds me. I did. I actually went and did the Chicago Triathlon this weekend.
Hey, nice. Did you finish it?
I did finish, but it was a little close. It was very hot and humid, and like one of those things. It's like right beforehand, I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome! I gotta do like an Iron Man," and then afterwards, I'm like, "I'm not fucking doing that again,
never again."
And you kind of got to be a little ignorant, to take that first step into the unknown, right? Right?
I think so. I think that's how you get good tasting food. Friends, like good friends,
Well, yeah, that's how you make new stuff, is experimenting and going into the unknown. So
totally.
You have to sort of like not know things to do the unknown, I guess. Yeah.
So
we had a really just such a fascinating, great conversation with Jordan.
It was awesome.
So much.
He had I whenever we emailed him later, I was like, "Hey man, you had a really big impact on my life." But he did.
Yeah. And impressed that, not to give anything away, but that he's been able to work professionally with his family, with his wife, and now with his sons. Something that I haven't really done so much. The very first game that I did, my brother helped me out with.
What did you do?
Pretty cool. A friend of mine, friend of ours, family friend, did art for the first Bungie game, the Operation Destroy game, and did the box art and all that stuff.
That's cool.
He was like a friend. And my oldest brother and him were friends, so they were kind of helping out. Yeah, no, it's cool times. How you doing? What's happening? What's going on?
I know you can't tell right now because I'm super chill. I did not do a marathon. I walked for half an hour, and I feel like I did a but I'm really excited.
How hot is it in Austin? Is it like super hot?
I'm not in Austin. Magnolia. Come on,
sorry, Magnolia. Why did I say Austin?
I don't know, because you think Texas and you think it's Austin.
It's because every time I say that you're from Houston, you correct me, say you're from Magnolia, and you say it's near Austin, because I think you want to be from Austin more than you want to be from Houston. I think that's a subconscious thing.
I like Magnolia. This is the first city I've been very proud of. Like, I am really proud of Magnolia. We have one of the best IPAs in the world. It's like a good town.
It's something to be proud of.
It's little, yeah. So
did I interrupt you? What are you so excited about?
Space Marine 2 comes out in less than 10
see, you've
days.
got Space Marine right behind you.
Yeah, that's the board game. I got it. I haven't opened it though. But I'm very excited for this game. I bought it twice. That's how excited I am. I got it for the PS5 and for the PC because I know my wife's gonna go, "It sounds like a war zone in here. Get out of the living room." So then I'll be like, "All right," and I'm just going to my office.
I'm just going to go to work, and you're going to fire it up on your computer. Yeah,
I think that game's going to change it's going to be game of the year. Mark my words.
Really? What's the over/under on that? I'm taking the under. Not for any reason other than there's been a lot of really good games this year.
There has been a lot of good games. There's a lot of contenders. I think there's at least, I want to say 5, definitely 3 that have been some of the best games in their genre. But I think this game is going to be, it's going to be the kind of game, and I'm just guessing. It's kind of a hope. I could be totally wrong, but it's going to have elements, because a lot of games that have come before this game did a lot of things really right. And this game is kind of like, it looks like it's going to pack a lot of that stuff from all these other games. Mm-hmm. And it's going to just be done like in a really cool setting, if that makes sense. Like, I'll give you an example. You have a really cool like horde mode, but it's in like a SWAT team type game, right? Mm-hmm. Or you have a really good co-op mode, but it's like in a fantasy Dragons game. You have a really good.
It sounds like you're just not a huge fan of these other genres.
No. They're just kind of siloed, and this one takes
puts them all together.
I think so, from what I've seen, and maybe it could just be really good marketing, and I'm a sucker. You know, I'm a sucker, dude.
It's not being a sucker. You're a fan. You're a fan.
I'm a fan. Yeah.
I mean, the marketing, it's for you. You're a fan.
Yeah.
So good. I'm glad you're excited about that. On that note, hope you enjoy our conversation with Jordan, a journeyman entrepreneur and a super creative guy. Really great conversation. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome to the podcast, friends. Today we have with us a true creative legend. Jordan Weisman has been at the forefront of so many cool, fun, exciting things, from pen and paper games to immersive reality games to alternate reality games. He's the founder of Faza Corporation, where BattleTech and Shadowrun were born. The founder of Virtual Worlds Entertainment, where the BattleTech universe was available for folks like us to go in person and get into pods and have combat with each other. I really want to talk about Virtual Worlds Entertainment because I remember that in Chicago. Also the founder of Faza Interactive, making video games right down the block from us at Bungie, and also acquired by Microsoft, the developer of Crimson Skies. So many companies, Jordan. 42 Entertainment, where he made the ARG I Love Bees,
Ooh.
Smith & Tinker, Hairbraid Schemes,
Classic.
a few more. Like I said, a creative legend. He's been named an Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young. I never got that. And he's won a Peabody Award. My goodness. Man, it's been a hot minute. So good to see you, Jordan. How are you?
Wait, you didn't mention WizKids.
I didn't mention WizKids.
No,
Oh my
you
gosh,
didn't.
and Aaron's favorite. How did I skip over that? Founder of WizKids, makers of the HeroClix collectible miniatures. I think WizKids is still going, right?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's still sticking around, yeah.
Was WizKids acquired by...
So WizKids was acquired by Topps, and then Topps
That's right.
sold it off to NECA, a company out in New Jersey, and it's still clicking along.
Right on.
Pun intended.
All right. So there's so many things to chat about. Where do we start?
Well, I was going to say the BattleTech pods. I didn't know until you read the intro that was something you were involved with. We had those in Houston.
Yeah.
And I remember it was I can't remember. It was kind of expensive to play. Mm-hmm. And I remember I went in and I sat down, and I was so bad. And there were people there, they were regulars. They were like teams, and they would go in there and they'd be communicating, and yeah, it was so awesome. I remember that. You got to sit inside the mech.
Yeah. So for cool. Our younger listeners, maybe we should kind of unpack what that actually was, because I have a lot of memories of that as well. Do you want to describe it, Jordan?
Yeah, sure. So Virtual World Entertainment was started in 1987. Actually wasn't called Virtual World at the time because the whole virtual reality phrase hadn't developed yet. It was originally called Environmental Simulations Project. And what we built...
it rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, it does. I was going to say.
Absolutely. You can tell why we know why we changed the name. Well, it was ESP, get it? I mean, come on.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, that's perfect.
But we opened up a place called the BattleTech Center in end of 89, which was the world's first networked simulators available to the public. And so you would, it was kind of a 3-act show. You go into it was kind of like a sci-fi environment based on the property BattleTech. You go in, there'd be a briefing area where you would pick your mechs and what landscape, what battlefield you want to be on, discuss your strategy, environmental effects, all those kind of things you would figure out. Then you go into launch bay, everybody would get into their own cockpits. As Aaron said, there was radio to communicate between the cockpits as you spread out on your mechs and try to accomplish your mission. Most missions, which were just, beating the other guys to the snot. And then afterwards you would leave that and go into the debrief area where, and this technology changed a lot over the years, but where you would get kind of a review of what you had just done. So we had captured all the network events, and it started with just printouts, and then it became 2D representations, and then it became like 3D cinematic films that were made of your battles for you to discuss. Yeah. So yeah, that was we did the first one in Chicago, where Alex and I are from, and then the did one in California and two in Japan, and then Tim Disney.
Oh, so there wasn't in
came
Houston.
and
It wasn't. There wasn't one.
there was.
Oh, there was.
So
Okay.
after Tim got involved, so Tim Disney came in and became our lead investor and a partner, and together we built 35 of those around the world, including Houston.
So I was thinking about this yesterday. What it would be like, or what it would take to start a business like that, because I have all the scars of like old school retail distribution of video games, where you actually have to make physical product and put it in a store, and I got to imagine it ups the level of difficulty, investment, etc. when you're not just making something physical, but you're operating like a retail environment with that business, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and I always say one of the key attributes of a good entrepreneur is being really fucking stupid, because you have to be ignorant of what you're about to go do, because otherwise you would never do it. You would never do it if you knew. I always say we don't do these things because they're hard. We do them because we didn't realize how hard they were going to be. So yeah, when we started that, we had the misconception that we could do it all like with off-the-shelf hardware in 1987. When off-the-shelf hardware in 1987 is dumber than your watch is now, right? And we were just wrong. I mean, we had to end up building our own image generators and network cards, and we had to build everything.
Wow.
And it cost literally 10 times what we thought it was going to cost. And we almost dropped FASA, which was the company you mentioned that did BattleTech and Shadowrun, was a very successful tabletop game company. We drove it almost to bankruptcy, funding this insane vision to do this thing. So yeah, it was just stupid. I mean, we made history, but it was stupid to get there.
Yeah. Do you think something kind of like that could exist today, or is there?
Well, they do. Yeah, the VR places are like that, right?
Yeah. I think the Void, which, well, that's out of business now, but ones like that are very much the same kind of business. You could even, I would even say kind of escape rooms are in a similar style of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's creating a social, highly immersive experience that is a reason to get out of your house, right? That's something that's just different and more immersive than you can do at home. So yeah, and I think the pros and the cons of those businesses are still the same as they were, 40 some odd years ago at this point, right? I mean, I think they have those benefits of immersion and social kind of inner connections that work really well. But from a business, they're still a really hard business to do because of the kind of way throughput works and the fact that most people don't go out most nights.
Right.
So, and some nights you have excess inventory, right? Like just like a hotel, and other nights you're oversold and you can't keep up.
You need surge pricing.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Which is very true. And that's where, I mean, really, these challenges go back before us, right? If you think about like bowling alleys, exactly the same problem, right? That's why bowling alleys develop leagues, right? To get you to come in on a Tuesday,
right?
And the BattleTech centers and the virtual centers, as you mentioned, Aaron, developed the same thing.
They had
leagues, we had competitions. We had, so
okay.
you had reasons for your regulars to come back and play on off nights.
Yeah, they were practicing.
That is fascinating. Okay, well, let's rewind a little bit here. We do share Chicago roots. You grew up in Chicago, and like what was in and around the house in terms of sort of aspirational hobby type things? Was there technology in the house? Did you grow up playing D&D? I'm imagining.
My dad was a book publisher, and so I think that was really kind of inspiring on its own. Just lots of great, and he was a huge fan of Mesoamerican culture and archaeological culture, and which has had a huge influence on Shadowrun, for instance. I mean, I based all of it on the books that were laying around the house. I got into computers really young, and there was an 8K pet showed up in my school,
Oh yeah.
and no one was touching it. And so I took over the AK pet and
They got the
just made
Commodore
it my
PET
own.
with the built-in monitor and the monochrome
Yep,
display. Yep,
exactly.
we had those at
Yep.
my school too.
And when we say AK, we mean
AK.
like
That was how much.
total
That was how
memory of
much
the
ran.
machine.
8K. We had those too. There was one machine in that room that had 16K, and like, but I don't know, whatever sixth graders were gonna do with 16K of RAM. I don't know, but
Yeah, that's right. I remember thinking, what'd you do with that? That's just, you know, who needs all that? But yeah, so I got into computers really young. And actually that before D&D, because D&D didn't exist until 73. And I was at that point a junior counselor at a camp in Wisconsin. And one of the senior counselors, i.e. a college kid, as opposed to, you know, me, a high school kid, brought in D&D. It just came out that year.
wow.
And it just like fucking blew my mind. And it was a very life-changing event for me, not only because of the game, but also because I had to learn to read. I was 16 and I hadn't learned to read yet. I was just faking my way through it as a dyslexic. But all of a sudden there was something I really needed to read,
Yeah.
for me. And so I, Tolkien was my see Dick and Jane run to finally figure out what everybody was talking about in this game, and then I went home to Chicago and I got my friends. We went back to Lake Geneva to buy copies of it ourselves. And at the time, the only place in the world to buy it was Gary Gygax's house.
Oh, this is like
really?
like when it's like it was.
Oh yeah, it just come out, right? Because TSR was this little tiny, publishing company doing tactical study rules. They were doing, historical miniatures until D&D, right?
I didn't even know that's what TSR. I didn't even know that's what TSR stood for. TSR stands for Tactical Studies Rules.
That's amazing.
Yeah, back in the day.
Wow. Okay. All right. Keep going. This is amazing.
So you would go to his house.
We go to his house, and the first floor of the house was the store, and Dave Arneson, the co-author, of D&D, was manning the store, and we were a big sale. We were 7 copies. That was a big deal. He was very excited about that. So he said, "You guys want me to run you on an adventure?" Like, yes. And we go to Gary.
What?
Hold on, audience. I'm picking my jaw up off the floor.
That's like go to Willy Wonka's house to buy chocolate.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like,
so we go into Gary's kitchen, and it had the table kind of laid out, and on one end of the table there was like a perforated board with a cutout like a bank teller, and Dave went and sat on the other side of that, so you couldn't see him, and he had a great voice, a great speaking voice, and so you just hear this, telling you the story, and every once in a while, his hand would come through the opening when he would deposit dice and roll these. And it was like he set the hook deep. Oh my God, So yeah, we were pretty hardcore after that, and luckily I got to work with Dave very closely in future years, and Gary somewhat too, and but it was a great origin story for me in gaming.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. I had never heard that story before. That's amazing. All right, and then you go off to college after that, or?
Yeah, well, not learning to read till you're 16 means you're a pretty shitty student, and I was a pretty shitty student even after learning to read. So I didn't have a lot of college options, but I loved the water and I loved sailing, and so I actually got a congressional appointment to go to the United States Merchant Marine Academy, which is in Kings Point, New York, and it's one of the government academies like Annapolis or West Point. And it was a really fascinating experience. And one of the things that we toured when we were there is they just built this bridge simulator. And so it was like recreation of a ship's bridge with big projection screens with dozens of polygons on every screen. And it was for learning to navigate ships into ports, which us students never got to touch, but it was, we got to tour it. And I saw that thing and I was like, all right, that whole idea of life at sea, fuck that. I'm going to go make that. I'm going to go make those. I want to go make that thing because that's the future of entertainment. So dropped out of school, went home and convinced myself that I could do it by wiring my Apple IIs together. I was wrong. But I fried a lot of other Apple II motherboards dry.
So wait, hold on. Because I had a similar experience. I don't know if your experience was actually like mine, but I tried to hook my Atari joystick up to my Apple Macintosh computer simply by grafting a different connector onto the joystick. And that's not how electronics works, apparently.
Well, we were trying. Yeah, there were no such thing as networks, but I knew I wanted to have multiple screens. I wanted multiple Apple II, like one Apple II per screen. So we did a serial connect bridge between the motherboards of the Apple IIs.
To do what?
Which it can work, but if you're just a little off, then you fry it.
So you actually had some understanding of electronics and were attempting to do it
well,
the correct way.
Enough to fry a motherboard, yeah. So the goal, Aaron, was to kind of create a network, right? So we could shoot information across the serial port from one machine to the next.
Okay, it wasn't to make like a big display or anything like that.
Well, it was to make a big display, but being able to try to keep them in sync with each other.
Okay,
that was the goal.
And what were you trying to display?
I was trying to create the Star Trek equivalent of the bridge simulator I had seen at the Academy. That was the original pitch I had for what the BattleTech Center was become. Before this was long before BattleTech was created. So I had this pitch about doing entertainment centers, and you'd go in and you'd be on the bridge of a starship, and you'd have your whole experience. And I went out and pitched that to investors after I dropped out of school, with pretty predictable results. What the hell is a computer game? Who are you? You're a college dropout.
Yeah, what year is this? What year is this?
This is 79.
Wow. Okay.
So
that was like peak sci-fi too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I basically got laughed out of their offices, and that's when we started FASA. So right, figured, I'll be rich overnight making paper games, and then I can go fund this thing I really want to make. Which, luckily, it only took seven more years later, but luckily, we actually did build a company that was able to fund it. So
isn't it funny how you come up with these plans that in your head will take X amount of time, and when you are successful, it's usually X times 4 or whatever. Nothing ever goes to a schedule.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So the early FASA years are that 7-year span. That's all pen and paper games, right? That's like BattleTech
right. Yeah,
is Shadowrun in that time as well.
Yeah. BattleTech and Shadowrun. We started with doing products for Traveler which was we were licensed to Game Designers Workshop out in Southern Illinois, and then did a couple of our own games, and then I did BattleTech, and that kind of changed our profile quite a bit. BattleTech kind of blew up, and then after BattleTech came Shadowrun.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the how does that business work or compare to like video games?
It's a lot easier.
No bugs.
Rarely does someone come in and say, the pages aren't staying in the book today. Yesterday they stayed in the book. Today they're not staying in the book, and we're not sure why.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
How were you selling them? Were you you weren't selling them out of your house, right? Like they would I remember Shadowrun had like hardcover. They were.
Oh yeah. Well, so we started by just the one skill I took away from the Merchant Marine Academy was drafting, and so I was drawing up spaceship deck plans for using in our Traveler games, and people were seeing those at the game club that we had formed and stuff, and I said, well, maybe we should print these and sell them. And so I asked my group around the table who's got a couple $100 come in on this with me, and Ross, who had been at the Academy with me, was like, yeah, sure, I'll put in. So there you go. That's how you choose a partner for 20 some odd years. This is like, who's around the table has got a couple $100. Yeah. So we print, and then I went around to stores in the area and just sold it to the stores. And then I asked them, where do you normally buy your stuff? And that's how I learned about this thing called distributors. And so I started developing a list of distributors by talking to stores, and then contact distributors, sold to distributors. So kind of figured out the network eventually.
That's smart.
You still play now? Are you still playing anything now?
Oh, we play. Yeah, we're a big tabletop family. I mean, two of my sons are tabletop game designers, and so we're always playing something. Their games, my games. We love playing other people's games. My wife was pretty much like Penny from Big Bang Theory, but became a really good gamer. So but she really likes more of the kind of abstract strategy rather than the the RPGs. So, but we do play a lot.
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome.
Because sometimes people stop playing, they just keep making games and don't play games.
Well,
anymore.
that's your current project right now. I was just I just saw you post on LinkedIn is a new pen and paper game, right? Is that right? Did I get that right?
Well, no. So, but it's easy to be confused because my son, my oldest son, created a game called Sea of Legends, which is a big, gorgeous miniatures game, and he put that out on Kickstarter, did very well, and then did a big sequel to it on Kickstarter. And so I've been working for the last 3+ years on a project called Adventure Forge, which is a no-code video game authoring platform, so that lowly people like us who just design games or illustrate them or write them can actually make games without having to know how to afford engineers. Because I've always just felt that was the big delta between tabletop and video games, is tabletop benefit from a much wider, more diverse and creative pool than video games do, because they're so much expensive to make and you have to have all these costly engineers. And so I really wanted to try to, get a lot more voices into video game design. And I wanted something that I could just screw around with and make, rather than having to do a design doc and send it to engineering and then they send it back to me and it sucks because anything you write down the first 10 times sucks. Be able to just screw around with myself and iterate and make it. So, so I've been working on that, and we have that, and it's awesome. And then we were thinking, well, what's the first game we want to make with that? As well as we're going to release it for other people to make their own games, right? That's the big goal for that. And it just was really impressed with what Zach and his partner Ryan had built for that world. I was like, well, let's take this world and make a video game out of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what we're doing. Yeah, so it's both the authoring platform and the video and the game. That's what we're working on.
And what's it called? The authoring?
The authoring platform is called Adventure Forge, and it's go to adventureforge.games. You can see it, or we'll be putting it out into it's in closed beta at the moment. We'll be putting in an open beta later this year. So we do have a page up on Steam. You can wish list there for it. As a plug.
Excellent. We'll put it in the show notes too.
I'll just try to slip those in.
Yeah, totally.
Where possible. And did I mention the Sea of Legends is going to be a Kickstarter, and there's a page up for that too. So if
I just got the pre-reg notice for that, so I will be participating in that Kickstarter for sure. So is the idea with Adventure Forge that I can download it, I can make my own game, and then does it have a platform built in where I can publish it, or is there create some sort of standalone thing I can release? How does that work?
Well, both. So that for the first level is you can publish it on the platform itself, right? So that way you don't have to set up your own accounts on Steam or iOS or Android or wherever else. So you can publish it on the platform, and then people who go to Adventure Forge can play your game. One of the things that was also important to me is that when you share it on Adventure Forge, you don't have to publish it for everybody. Like if you're working on something, you only want Aaron to see it, you can just share it just with Aaron, right, on the platform.
Or if like everybody but Aaron, I could do that too.
Yeah. Come on, man.
We don't have exclusions though. That's a good idea. We should add that. It's like the entire world but Aaron can play this game.
That's nice. This is cool though. UGC straight up.
Yeah, I don't, Jordan. We haven't caught up in a little while, but that's what Aaron and I have a studio where we're basically building games on platforms. So we definitely should check out.
Exactly. And I know I thought it was super cool what you guys have been doing. I've been looking from afar. And so ours is like trying to take that kind of to the next level by saying you don't need engineers to do it.
Oh, look at that. Aaron, we don't need the engineers now.
You're the engineer. I'm a diva artist. That's all we need. That's all we need.
So basically, Aaron, you can dump his ass and make your own games.
Well, that's super exciting. And what's it like working with your son on this project?
I've had the joy of working with all my boys in different circumstances, and actually on Sea of Legends, all three are contributing, which is kind of fun. So it's always interesting, right? I mean, I think we all are different designers, and every designer brings their own ego to the
How do you handle
to it. As much as we,
Are you like still
as
the
much as we
boss?
try to hide it, we're like, I'm going to put that ego in my back pocket and not. But actually, I've been very blessed that I think all of us have really worked well together. I mean, I've been working with my wife for 30 some odd years now too. Like we've worked, so many of the companies we've done together. And my father and her brother and my sister and our boys, we've all worked together a lot over the years, which has really been, and we still get together Thanksgiving.
Well,
We stab the turkey at each other,
that's
so
awesome.
that's exciting.
Have you, on this project, did you sit down at the beginning and said, all right, look, this is how we're going to split up the money?
No, it's just really easy. It's like, no, we take all the money, and then when we die, you get it.
We'll take care of
This
it.
is awesome. No engineers.
All right.
You get all the money.
Yeah, no, I got to write this down.
It's awesome.
I got to write this down. And then how do you settle, like, your son's like, okay, here's the thing. And you're like, well, this should be red. He's like, no, it should be green. And you have the classic red versus green argument. Who wins?
Right. Well, we hire a colorblind art director. Everybody, so like, art director goes, it looks the same to me. I think you guys are really fucking doing. Like when my wife and I first started to work together after we were first married, it was a disaster. I think we were both kind of too young and too needed to be right, kind of thing. But I think one of the few advantages of getting old is you stop worrying about that as much. You're not trying to prove to everybody how smart you are because you've already failed doing that. So you've given up on it by now, and you can just be a lot more open to others' ideas. And also, I think the other thing you realize is that sometimes the passion is what's really the important thing, not whether it's blue or green.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If that passion, if their passion for green means they're going to make it better because of it, well, then green is probably the right answer.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, you said something kind of in passing a minute ago about like the first 10 times you write something down, it's horrible. And it's like that execution is really kind of like what sets things apart. And that's really a product of this iterative process. And so whether it's red or green to start, it almost doesn't matter. It's like, where does it end up when it's, how do you get it?
So
how do you
true.
get it to great?
So true.
So cool. Love that. So how did you decide to, or get to, or make the jump from, I mean, clearly you kind of grew up wanting to do tech stuff because you fried a bunch of motherboards, but FazaCorp was like a pen and paper games, and Faza Interactive computer games. And I don't remember exactly, was Virtual Worlds in the middle or did it come after?
Yeah. So it went FASA and then Virtual World. And so Virtual World was our technological, trial by fire at learning to design hardware and software.
Why take a slow ratchet up? Just go straight for the deep end. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, entrepreneurs are stupid. So that was Virtual World. And then during this, of course, there was a lot of BattleTech / MechWarrior was doing well in licensed games, right? And Activision was producing at this point now MechWarrior 2, which they were having a real hard time with. But we had done a lot of work in exactly this, right? How to do multiplayer simulation. So we were able to work with them, and then their license was expiring right before MechWarrior 2 came out, and we had decided to start Fast Interactive, and so that we could take all that we had learned and create a PC-based game company. And Bobby Kotick was like, nah, we're not interested. So that's fine. So we raised money, actually from Gilman Louie and Spectrum Holobyte, to farm Fast Interactive, and then MechWarrior 2 comes out and triples the size of Activision. Back in the day when a single title could triple the size of a company, and all of a sudden he reacted like Bobby always reacts, which is he sued me.
Really? I didn't know this.
Because that.
Why did he sue you?
Why did he sue you?
Good. Well, what you learn is that with Bobby, when he files suit, it's the equivalent of a normal person calling you.
Okay, he just wanted to get your attention.
I just wanted to, yeah, I just wanted like, I'd like to have a conversation, and so we were just starting at Fast Interactive, so we weren't really ready to, you know, follow up this giant hit with a title right away. So we worked out a deal for them to be able to do MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, and one other expansion why we were spinning up on MechWarrior 2, and then we did 2 and 3 and 4, and then Microsoft acquired Fast Interactive during MechWarrior. Yeah,
Was
well,
the
that was
Mech
MechWarrior 2. We were working on
Commander?
3.
Was there was a Mech Commander,
Yeah, we
right?
worked on right. We worked on Mech Commander, which is an RTS. Yeah, so we were working on that at Fast Interactive while they were working on MechWarrior sequels, and then we started spinning up MechWarrior 3, which we did with with Microsoft after they acquired us.
Okay. All right. So did Activision publish any MechWarrior games after MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, or was there?
I think they did. There was Mercenaries, and there was one other expansion whose name
I remember the box had like all the yellow plume of fire on
Fire,
it.
yeah.
Was that 2? Was that MechWarrior 2?
That was 2.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was 2. Yeah, the Mad Cat on the front. Yeah, yeah.
What did you like when Microsoft acquired FASA Interactive? That must have been what, 98?
It was. Yeah, it was 98.
Because it was like a couple of years before us.
Correct. Yeah.
How was your experience? I asked because when we were moving out there, they said many times, "Hey, we don't want to do the same thing we did with FASA Interactive because we made a bunch of mistakes."
Right. And they were saying that because I had forced that down their throat.
What are the mistakes? I don't know what y'all are talking about.
So it was pretty funny because Ed is a dear friend, and we've talked about this a bunch of times over the years, and I think he did an incredible job at Microsoft and Xbox.
Same. We love it.
Yeah, and but I think when we started Xbox and we started talking to people, right, and we're like, "Oh, we've talked to a bunch of guys." Yes, we've talked to a bunch of guys, and then we're going to buy them. So, oh, okay, that's great. And then we're going to bring them out and integrate them just like we did you guys. And I'm like, what? No, that would be a really big mistake, right? Because when we came out and they moved us all out there, we basically got integrated throughout the rest of the studio. And part of the issue is that I was, reporting directly to Ed as creative director for the whole org. And then the studio was being formed, within it. But the studio HR reporting meant that you had this kind of really big matrix reporting schedule, so that it took, going from that little kind of company to being part of this big company, it took a long time for our team to kind of find their feet again and to figure out how to get a good development, process in place in the context of, a place that wasn't really built for doing video games, and it was painful for a lot of the people involved. They did great work, and they eventually, it came together, but it was expensive and long, and we didn't have time for that to happen if we were going to get Bungie to ship a great title for Xbox.
Right. Yeah. No.
Right. So I was talking to Ed and to Robbie and said, we don't have the time to afford that. If we're going to buy these guys, we have to kind of create a bubble around them so that they can keep their heads down and continue to do fast, good work. And I argued for trying to get you guys to remain in Chicago. But I didn't win that part, but I did win the bubble part.
Well, all right, we have you to thank for that. I think that,
well, at least contributing to. I wouldn't take all the credit, but I'll contribute to it. Yes. So.
I mean, I can tell you from experience, it did make a huge difference because keeping the team and the reporting and just like even the space, like. We had a different kind of space than it was, we had like open space, which was not normal at Microsoft. And all of those things, I think, helped keep the sort of the work rhythm and the culture. And you build a lot of these trust relationships based on who you interact with regularly and what those relationships are like. And if you change I'm reporting to somebody who I've just met now, it's like, okay, you're kind of starting a new job.
But I really enjoyed my time there. I was in a very kind of a pinnacle job, right? If you're the creative director for, what was going to be one of the big three platforms. So on that side, it was really exciting. But it was also a lot of flying around the world and saying things like, have you thought about blue? Um, and rather than, making games myself. So that part was a little, I was too far away from
Yeah.
the metal,
Yeah.
uh, so, but, and it was also the other part that was frustrating is, my saying at the time was, Microsoft can open any door, but then it's too big to walk through them. And that was my experience, right? To go out and create what I thought were fantastic opportunities for the organization, and we could never get them done, you know, because you had, so much bureaucracy and politics and agendas, multiple agendas, right? I mean, MechWarrior was a classic example. Like the team had done this great job of integrating MechWarrior, the current version of MechWarrior, into all the first person shooter communities, you know, and really interesting ways. They'd done a really great job of coming up with all that, and then they were told to take it all out because Microsoft was going to build its own first person shooter community one day,
Huh.
which never happened, of course. But but that was that kind of thing where you get kind of competing agendas.
Yeah.
Can making one great product gets harder because it has to serve so many masters.
Yeah. Is that like,
And this was early
Yes.
days, right? Early days. Microsoft didn't really know how to make games at the time. I mean, Ed was figuring it
Yeah.
out.
it is fascinating looking at that whole arc, because I got there after you got there, but even when I got there, there was a lot of trial and error happening to get the Xbox out the door and to get launch titles set up. Some got finished, some did not get finished, some were good, some were not good, some were very good. And it's they've built on that over and over and over to what they are today by just buying Activision. And now I not too long ago I went and just cataloged just the first person shooter properties that they own, and it's like most of them. It's bonkers. So is that like the only job you've ever had?
Well, actually, I mean, no, I've had a couple others. So after we sold WizKids to Tops, I had a boss again. I worked with us, reported to the CEO of Tops, who were great guys. And then we sold Harebrained Schemes to Paradox. We had bosses. That one did not go off so very well. And then I was creative director at Walt Disney Imagineering for several years, working in R&D on interactive for theme parks and stuff. And
Wait a second. Hold on a second. Did I not know?
What'd you do for that one? That's
That's
awesome.
an incredible job. That's like if you ask like a 10-year-old, what's the coolest job in the history of time? It's that one.
it was a cool
Was it
job.
cool? Did you work for John
enjoyed-
Snoddy, or was he around?
I did, yes, yeah. John, after John moved into that, when John came back to Disney and to R&D, he reached out to me and brought me in.
So wait, what years was that?
Oh shit, I don't know. What was that? That would have been probably like 2015-ish. I'm thinking.
Okay, because I was there
Something-
from 2009 through 13.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think it was after you left, but I'm not positive. I have to go look it up. I'm terrible at years. I can.
It better have been after I left, because we could have hung out while I was there.
That's true. Yeah.
Hold on, but what did you do? What did you work on? Can you talk about it, or is it all like top secret?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can talk about some of it that's public, because in R&D you can't.
Did you make the
only talk
Flying
about stuff that-
Dragon in Shanghai? Did you work on that?
I did not. No. Super cool.
Yeah.
No, I did not work on that. No, I was working on I worked on the interactive operating system that they use for a lot of the stuff now. A lot of the interactive shows uses this authoring system, which we call Helios, that tracks customer information. So it tracks like, oh, you've met this person before, and last time you said this. Like, so when a stormtrooper sees you again, like the stormtrooper can recognize you, even though it's actually a different actor in the stormtrooper, but he can pick it up the conversation and continue that conversation.
That's cool.
And then that also drove the and don't, this is a whole episode by itself. We're not going to get into it, but the Star Wars Starship Resort, which was originally my pitch doc, was my
You
original
pitched
design
that?
doc, and the and the operating system that ran it was the Helios system.
Wow.
Is that facial recognition, or is it using the bracelets, the wrist things?
Well, the system uses a whole bunch of different inputs. And I only have I did a bunch of patents while we were there because and so I'm only on one patent, which was not about recognizing individuals, but recognizing social groups, to be able to figure out like which is a family unit, so that you can then like be able to treat them as a group on their story. So when you're having the narrative of the group can be cohesive. But one of the patents I thought was fascinating that they did when I was there, that was an input to Helios, was what we called shoegaze. Again, I didn't come up with it, but what they recognize is that people's shoes are almost as identifiable as their face, and people are a lot less concerned if you're scanning their shoes than their face, because they can change their shoes. You can change your shoes, but for the course of a day, which is what we really count, which is what we care about, right? That's like you don't change your shoes, so we can.
That's super cool.
I thought it was a great observation.
Ethical and cool.
Genius. So were you down in Glendale? Did you come down here and work in?
I commuted down to Glendale. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you've had a few little minor jobs here, creative director for Xbox.
Oh, and I forgot Walmart. I worked for Walmart.
What? Really?
Yeah, got the blue vest, the whole thing. Yeah, stood out in front of me.
Welcome.
I mean, did you ever get in a suit at Disneyland? Like for the immersion?
No, I didn't. I always wish I did, though. Did you do that?
I didn't get to do that. No, I wish I did too.
No,
I wish I did.
I didn't get to do that.
Yeah, I didn't get to do that.
So actually, the reason I left Paradox is that a coworker actually from WizKids, a guy who I was aware of WizKids, was now head of digital at Walmart, and he and I had always had this on-running debate about what's more, he always felt that VR was going to be like this giant thing that transformed the world. And I'm like, I've been in VR since '87. It's a really cool thing, but
but it's not.
Cocooning technologies don't change the world. I said, augmenting technologies change the world. And I said, if you're looking for the one that's going to supplant the cell phone, the smartphone, it's going to be augmented reality glasses. That's what's going to have that next level of interface that changes the way we interact with each other and the world and data. And they were like, yeah. And then he called me back a year later and goes, well, why don't you come and tell us what AR is? So I went out to Bentonville and met with him and the CEO and the rest of the crew and talked about what AR is going to be and why it's important. And they said, okay, prove it, go build it. So we built an 80-person, my wife and I built an 80-person AR team here in Seattle and built all sorts of incredibly cool, associate facing and consumer facing demonstration applications using, HMD headsets.
Wow.
So that was another time I had a boss.
Okay. Amazing. Is that going to show up in Walmart at some point?
I would have thought so. I mean, part of the reason we worked on it was to get them ahead of a technology, right? Because they had, kind of missed the web and created Amazon, and then they missed mobile, and that kind of made Amazon stronger. They were like, don't miss the next one. And the CEO, Doug, who I really had just gained a huge amount of respect working with him. He was like, yeah, we don't want to miss the next one. So we want to be on top of it. So they invested in this and we built a lot of core tech, but I think we were kind of in what was a disruptive technology group, kind of an internal incubators where you set up entrepreneurs to build little companies to demonstrate this stuff. And then I think once we had kind of proven what it is, they were like, okay, now we're going to roll that into the mothership. And so about a year and a half, 2 years after we left, they kind of shut down this as a separate group, rolled it into the mothership. So
got it.
I mean, they're doing a lot of AR on mobile. I think that they are, I hope they're going to stay very cognizant, aware of as glasses get developed. But no, our timeline for kind of consumer adoption of glasses definitely is slower than what we anticipated. I think part of that was COVID and other issues, but I still think we're still several years out from, a set of glasses you'd actually wear.
Right. Do you think of yourself as like, what do you think of yourself first, like entrepreneur or like creative guy?
When anyone asks me what I do for a living, I say make shit up.
So creative guy.
So creative guy.
Yeah, I only start companies because I fucking have to make something. I don't really like. I'm actually not a very good business person. I'm not a good manager. I'm an okay leader, which is different than a manager. But it's only because there's something in my head I have to get out.
Okay. All right. I can relate to some of that for sure.
Was Walmart the last thing?
Yeah, before doing Adventure Forge.
So how long ago was that? Because I had a buddy who was that like Studio? They had a name for it.
Project,
Studio 8?
It's called Project Archer. Oh, Studio, yeah. The Project Archer was within Store 8. That's
Store
right.
8. Did you overlap with Tom Kang at all?
Yes, I was on the group that interviewed Tom to bring him in. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Tom
Of
was
course, you and Tom
my
worked
business
together.
partner.
Yeah.
At
I'd
White
totally
Load.
forgotten that. Yeah,
Another
absolutely.
Chicago guy, another
Yeah.
Disney guy.
Yeah, is he still there? Oh no, he probably got shut down when they shut down Story. Yeah, so same time they shut down. That's right. Oh yeah, no, he was doing good
running
stuff, too.
he's running a new console company that's making a gaming console for kids. Pretty cool.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, he was a cool guy. Cool guy.
Yeah, totally. We went to college together. Talking about like, like how do you pick your business partners who's in for a couple $100? Like same deal right there.
You were in a frat. You were in a frat with him, right? You were a frat brother.
Who's bringing the beer? I'll bring the beer. Okay, you're in. You're in. I realized like you have worked in all these different. I mean, I think there's probably a through line here with like maybe it's technology, but not exactly. But definitely like on the forefront. That's always seems like the case. Like from all of these things, from even pen and paper, like getting into it, like in Gary Gygax's kitchen, to like VWE games, AR, ARGs, all of this stuff is they're all different contexts. And I'm curious if you think maybe there's something about you that makes you either seek that kind of at like the new, or there's something that makes you fluent. I mean, I know you mentioned earlier that you're dyslexic, which I know is a common trait of, like Spielberg and very like creative minded folks who can think differently. I'm just wondering if you think that there's something that you identify with in yourself that makes you either seek those kinds of new things out, or maybe makes you extra fluent in those kind of contexts that, or maybe it's just that you're in a place where you're unfamiliar, so there's no rules. Like the thing you were saying, like, entrepreneurs have to be dumb because if you were clued in, you wouldn't do it. If that's, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do think, I do see, as you mentioned, there does seem to be some correlation, I think, between the way your brain's wired for dyslexia and different types of creativity. And very large percentage of people are dyslexic to different extents. I mean, much more than we thought back in the day. So there may be certainly some of that. ADHD, totally a factor. It's like, I always love moving on to new things. I guess I read a huge amount, and I always love looking at new tech and thinking about, how to tell stories with it. I mean, that to me, even though it's been a huge diversity of technologies and everything from theme parks to D&D books, to me the whole career comes down to kind of three legs. It's it's storytelling and a socialization, and then the technology is what technology do I need to drive a new way for people to tell stories and socialize, right? And so that's always what I'm looking for. It's like, because to me there's nothing more entertaining on a planet than other people, and if you can inspire people to connect to each other and find through story and through game, I think that's what makes it special. So I'm always looking for those kind of things.
Love that.
Did you figure that out with AR, like storytelling with AR?
Yeah, AR is that's magic, man. To be able
Yeah.
to bring people into an environment where you can really, take all the things that we've been dreaming about or that we've been putting people into video games through avatars, but now actually saying, no, there is no avatar, it's you, right? And that spell, like when you put your hand out and the spell materializes around your hand and you throw the fireball and it goes flying across the room and explodes. Just that's magical stuff, and
Yeah.
we made that work, and you can. It's just super cool. Just right, no one.
Wait a second. Did you make like a spell that you can like earn at
Like
Walmart,
Skyrim?
and then you throw the
Lower the
spell
prices.
at the PlayStation? You get 10% off.
Yeah,
because
that'd be cool.
of your loyalty points.
See, if we had built that, we'd probably still be in business.
This is a complete aside, but like recently somebody was asking me a question about like applying their game design knowledge in places outside of games. I just realized that I fly United Airlines. That's just
you're
the
from
airline
Chicago.
that I've chosen to fly.
Yes,
because
exactly.
They're based in Chicago because I'm from Chicago. And just watching like how they've developed their loyalty programs and their digital offerings as a customer, it's very painful because they've taken a lot of things away from me and put them into behind the paywall, but it's very reminiscent of game design of like, okay, you want to reserve a seat? Well, that's an in-app purchase.
Right.
You want a bag? That's an in-app purchase. You want a meal? That's also an in-app purchase. It's like, wow, did they hire a freaking like game designer to come up with all this?
Everybody's doing
it feels
that,
like
though.
it.
It's not just United.
Oh, it's true. And you remember, I mean, the buzzword of what was it a decade ago? Gamification, right? Everything.
Game.
For better,
brush your teeth. Yeah, get some points.
It's
health insurance credits.
All right. Well, so I Love Bees is, I think, probably maybe for me, the best example of you stepping into the unknown and coming up with something. Like, how did you even?
It was awesome.
Oh, well, thank you guys.
Oh, and the what was the name of
the Beast? Was
the Beast was the Beast the first one?
Yeah.
With okay, but just because that is totally like that. Imagine, what did you call it? The screen with infinite resolution, your imagination. That is totally the kind of thing that people would have in their imagination. But getting from imagination to something that really exists and is cool and has impact is like, I couldn't even. Like, how did that go from your head to being
okay? Well, let's. When I was a kid at summer camps, same summer camp, right? One of the guy who ran the camp, name was Steve Arnold, who went on to great stuff. But he was studying paranormal psychology at the time. Actually, man, it was getting his PhD in paranormal psychology. Yeah, basically. It was like ghosts and magic and spells, and he was studying all this esoteric stuff, and it was incredibly. And so I knew him as a kid, and then as I came back as a counselor and worked with him all the time, and we got to know each other, and he tuned me into this whole thing that was called the Beatles mystery at the time, right? This whole mythology that John Lennon had woven these clues all through the music and publicity and all the album covers and everything, and that there was this, giant puzzle to be had there, and so that really stuck with me, and then I was thinking about how each form of media that form of media that we had created eventually gave birth to a new form of storytelling, right? But traditionally, when that media first comes out, it's used to just transmit the previous forms of storytelling. So, for instance, like when radio was invented, they would put a radio in front of a stage show. They'd put a radio in front of an orchestra, right? There wasn't content being created specifically for the media of radio, and it took, in this case, it was Orson Welles who was like, wait a minute, this is totally different, right? When a person comes to the theater, they're coming into our house. In radio, we're going into their house. So how do we tell a story that's set in their house? Which is where War of the Worlds and everything else came from, which was the direct inspiration for what we did for I Love Bees was War of the Worlds, right? Because you guys were doing the invasion, you know. Anyway, so I was just really thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, what is the, you know, what's the new form of storytelling, or a form of storytelling that could be done on the web so much better? And what I came up with was, it's a search oriented medium, right? You're searching through lots of shit to find the information that you want. So what if that was the storytelling mechanism? The mechanism was search oriented, discovery oriented, and communication oriented. So I would find something and then share it, right? And this was the infancy of being able to share information, right? We didn't have social media at the time, but there were, you know, forums and channels and, you know, of ways of kind of community forming, even if it was much more rudimentary. So I started to think, okay, well, what if we told stories like that, but we wrote a story, we created all the evidence as if the story had taken place, hide the evidence around the digital and physical world, throw the story out, let people find the bits and pieces of it, and like an archaeologist or like a crime scene investigator, reassemble the story from the evidence. And when they do so, it will not be the story that we wrote. It'll be similar to the story we wrote, but it's going to be determined by their collective imaginations.
Yeah,
it'll be their version of the story.
Exactly.
That's how I would browse it. Actually, I'd go to pages where people would like upload all the audio files and put them in an order that they thought they would, and I would just listen to them.
And we didn't quite, I think, maybe set enough context for anybody who didn't experience it. But this was I think the first alternate reality.
The first one was called The Beast, and it was for Steven Spielberg's film AI, and then the second was for Halo 2. Yeah.
Did you do one for Nine Inch Nails as well?
We did 9 Inch Nails, and we also did Why So Serious for the Batman movies, and you know, a bunch of other ones. But yeah, those are the kind of high water marks. So yeah, it was an absolutely fascinating experience. And all right, the story of how the first one came about, right? So we were at Microsoft, and it was E3, and Ed and Robbie said, we're going to go meet with Steven Spielberg, and we want you to come along. And I was like, absolutely.
You're like, I'm busy.
Yeah,
that day.
Exactly. Let me check my calendar. And so we went and met with him, and it was him and Kathleen Kennedy and Katzenberg and the whole crew, and they pitched the movie AI to us with incredible art and, you know, models and everything. I was just like, oh my God, you know. But halfway through, I kind of blurted out, "Oh, wait a minute, it's Pinocchio," and he was like, "Yeah, but it is." I was like, "Wow." Anyway, so we finished, and I was like, "I can't wait to go tell my kids I met you." And he's a big MechWarrior fan, so he was like, "I can't wait to tell my kids I met you." I was like, "Yeah, okay, no, I get to tell my kids, not you." And on the way back, they said, "You know, so what do you think? Should we do this?" I was like, "Well, thank you for the best meeting of my life, but I don't think so. I mean, I think this movie could be incredible, but not really for the demo of 1835 Mail, which we're trying to hit for launch. So, you know, probably not." And they were like, "Oh, okay." And then Robbie came back in a month or two later and said, "Okay, so we did the deal. You have to make 5 video games."
Of course.
I was like, wait, 5 video games? So we set about trying to figure out how to make 5 video games out of an incredibly emotional story about a son desperate for a mother's love, you know, for an 1835 male audience. And we came up with that was a pretty good plan, you know, as best as we could within the context, and started to make those games. And we decided that the kind of through line of the movie was we could do one game, kind of an RPG of the boy and his journey through that really desperate world, and then the other 4 we wanted to set against the struggle that the universe was going through, right? That the world that he had set up was going through, which was, you know, I kind of backed it out to look at it as it was a fight for rights, right? It's a fight for recognition. And in this case, it's a non-biological life form trying to, you know, have equal rights with the humanity because they were, and the rights for recognition and to be human by those who have decided that you're not human is unfortunately something that goes all through history, right? As humanity has constantly and conveniently determined that some people who don't look like us don't get to have the rights we have, right? And those kind of the resolution to those are rarely peaceful.
Yeah,
they're filled of strife. So we could set the rest of the games against that struggle, and so then we needed to tell kind of the story of that world, to bring that world from the background of the son desperate for mother's love to the foreground. And so that's where I pitched the idea of telling that story through this kind of discoverable mechanism, right? Rather than trying to, put it out as a book or putting it out as a whatever. But if we kind of hid the clues of this story and then people discovered it, I thought it would have a lot more impact than if we just tried to tell people.
Yeah.
Like audio logs, like that concept.
Yeah. So this one was not, the audio logs, we use that later for On the Beast because there the inspiration was very much kind of like War of the Worlds radio. And so we really leaned into that one. This one was combination of every type of asset you can imagine hidden across the digital and physical world. So yeah, that was basically the idea. We wrote this. We basically, as Steven said, we wrote basically the prequel to the movie, and we also explained how it turned into the planet turned into an ice ball, and then we wanted to tell it through this mechanism. So I went to
that's not a spoiler, is it? Is that a spoiler for the movie?
What, the planet's an ice ball? No, not if you stayed awake through the whole thing. No,
I'm kidding. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, and I kind of want to go back and see it now.
A lot of those AI movies are weird now. Yeah, they really match.
Does it hold up? You think?
I haven't watched it in probably 10 years, but as of 10 years ago, it still packed a punch. I mean,
okay,
because Steven. I mean, what was kind of interesting, and it was to me watching him make the movie. Not that I know shit about movies, but it started as a very like Spielberg warm movie, and I think, and from my uninformed perception, it became more and more an homage to the director that he had inherited the project from, right? Kubrick,
which was Kubrick, yeah.
Yeah, and it became
which is not like not a warm, happy, friendly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's what was kind of interesting in the tonal nature of the movie is it was caught between the poles of these two directors that were doing it. Anyway, so I went. So I had the premise and gathered Elon Lee and a bunch of my other team together, and we started kind of brainstorming. It was, and I went to Robbie and said, okay, so this is how I want to tell the story, and he said, so let me get it right. You want to spend a lot of money, create a lot of assets, hide them, and tell no one it exists. And I said, yes. And he said,
you got it. Yeah.
He says, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's like, that's not marketing. That's just taking a pile of money and burning it. And I was like, okay, well, and he said, no, we're not going to do that. And so then I was in LA and I was meeting with Spielberg and Kennedy. And I said, so here's how we're thinking of telling the story. And I pitched the whole thing to them, and they're storytellers. So they were like excited about a new way to tell a story. And they were like, that's awesome. We're excited to do that. And I said, well, that's great. So, but we were thinking, since it kind of promotes the movie and the game, that Warner Brothers and Microsoft could share the cost. I'm like, absolutely. And I said, and I have this kind of budgetary issue at Microsoft at the moment. I can't actually get the Microsoft money yet. So I thought maybe Warner Brothers pays for the first half of the campaign and Microsoft would pay for the second half. Because my boss had just told me he wasn't going to give me any money. So.
Did that work?
So
it must have.
He said, no problem. And then in my favorite phone call of all time, she calls the head of marketing. This is Kathleen Kennedy. Calls the head of marketing and says, so I'm going to send this guy, Jordan, over. You're going to give him a check for a lot of money, multiple millions of dollars. You're not allowed to ask what it's for. And from now on, anytime you come up with anything for the movie, any marketing for the movie, you have to send it to him. He's going to make changes to it and send it back, and you run what he gives you. And then
you're like, what did I get myself into?
she just hangs up the phone, and I'm like, oh my God, who could have made, no one can make that phone call. I said, it must be good to be king. And she's, oh yeah, it really is. I was like, I mean, literally, she's probably one of 2 or 3 people on the planet could make a call like that. But
It's
so
amazing.
yeah, so we went and did it, and it got a lot of attention, and millions of people involved, and big articles all over the world about, like, who's doing this and what does it come from and how is it, blah blah. And Robbie brings I think it was Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and he puts it on my desk and he goes, I thought I said we weren't doing this. I was like, I misunderstood. I thought you said you just didn't have the money at the time, but do you now? And he's like, yes, asshole, we do now.
I love that.
So that was the first one. And then and that was why I was at Microsoft. And then I had left Microsoft. And then Halo 2 was coming up. Oh God, I'm going to forget his name. And I know it's such guy was heading up marketing on Halo 2. But so he called me up and he said, hey, we would love you to, get the team back together and do an ARG for launch of Halo 2. And so I literally did put the team back together. We formed 42 Entertainment as a company to do those kind of things. And I Love Bees was the first one. So it was, Elon and Sean Stewart, myself, and Jordan.
Wow, I didn't realize Elon was part of it. And he went on to do like Exploding Kittens, right?
Yeah. So Elon is kind of my fourth son, and he and Shane Small, who was also a member of our team at WizKids, they were working together at Microsoft years later, and Microsoft LA, and Shane had designed the game, which then became Exploding Kittens. Yeah.
All right, we really did keep you into overtime, but thank you, Jordan, for hanging out with us.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. If you ever want to, more boring stories, just give me a call.
Right on. All right, we'll see you around.
See you, Jordan.
Did you know all of that stuff?
Some of it.
Did you know all that stuff that he had done? I mean, I know you're a fan of WizKids. I had gone into BattleTech Center in person and played. It sounded like you did too.
Yes, and I even looked up the pictures, dude. Even the RPG stuff, the pen and paper stuff. Man, I love those books. I love them. I just buy them too, and I just like have them.
Chouse, is that?
Chouse Dragon. I should have told that story for this episode. But man, that he did all that stuff. That's so cool. I wonder if we should have asked him if he still has all his original pen and paper books. If he ever goes back and reads them or plays.
I'm sure he does.
But the BattleTech thing is crazy.
Harvey was talking about playing. This was actually interesting. I was listening to the Harvey episode, and he was talking about how when he was hanging out with the Origin folks before they hired him, that they would play role-playing games. One of the games he referenced was Shadowrun.
Shadowrun, yeah. I remember when I first experienced Shadowrun. It blows your mind. You're like, what is this? I don't get this.
So I bet Harvey's listening to this episode because Jordan is on. I bet, hey, Harvey.
The characters are cool, though. Like, when he said that he was inspired by his dad's, was he like not archaeologist? What did he say he was? No, but he was saying that all those books were around from Mesoamerica. So he was inspired.
Oh, yeah, right.
So whenever it's such a weird, like, usually you go into the store, it's like elves and it's like space marines and, people hacking computers with chips from their head. And then, it's like Shadowrun. It's like so different.
It's original.
It's really cool. Yeah, it was neat.
Yeah.
Hey, do y'all ever do role playing at home? Any like RPG games? Dice?
Like paper? We did, I ran a campaign, just a Pathfinder, starter.
Oh, Pathfinder. How you liking that? Who'd you do it with?
With the girls. The girls were into it. Yeah. And that was a ton of fun.
What book did you use? Like the
the Pathfinder's it's its own book,
right.
It's like the starter kit or whatever,
Okay,
real intro.
Yeah, I know all the D&D. It was a big deal with the art because all the artists from the D&D were going to Pathfinder because it's all the old D&D people, and like it was like a little competition. I remember that. So they had like better artists or something. I don't know if that's true, but that's what the comic book store guy told me.
Huh? Okay. I mean, I remember when I doubt Dragon magazine is still in print, is it? I should know this.
I don't know.
but there was like so much inspiring art on the cover and in that magazine.
Yeah, I used to get it at the bookmobile.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us this week. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Jordan. We sure did.
I did, yeah.
We shall see you next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Fourth Curtain Podcast. The Fourth Curtain is a production of Fourth Curtain Media with community management by Doug Zartman. Lovingly edited and mastered by Bryen Hensley at Noise Floor Sound Solutions in Chicago. To get a peek at upcoming episodes or to send in questions to the show, visit our site at thefourthcurtain.com. And be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for listening.